Hello YouTube, and welcome to a preview for a new mod. This is Craft. It's a new mod made by me, Cobbs, the author of TSON Craft, and this mod, well, it's a magic mod, and it's based around the same concepts that TSON Craft is, except it's it's entirely focused on magic, and it has a very different way of looking at things. So I am about to get started. So soil mode here. So first thing that you want to do in Craft is you want to make yourself a book of knowledge, and you do that by getting a book, a piece of redstone, blaze powder, and glowstone dust. Makes a book of knowledge. Now, what you want to do with this is right-click with it, and it will open up this page. It currently doesn't do anything, but it exists. So that's that, and it's right in there. You get an achievement, basic research. So Craft adds a bunch of achievements to the game. And this is kind of like your research tree. So Craft works around the idea of researching things. And you do research by using this table, and it allows you to unlock recipes and other things like that. So we've just completed basic research by opening our book of knowledge. So that's that. Now, actually, this tree here isn't entirely accurate, but it's just a way of representing it in a reasonably good fashion. So now that we've got our book of knowledge, what we want to do is we want to make use of it. So the first block we want to make is this arcane elemental workbench. I keep calling it an arcane workbench because half the things in this mod are called arcane and some of them are called elemental. I always get confused. But what you do is you take your book of knowledge and you put it with a crafting table. So if I grab myself a crafting table, like so, we shall do this. That makes an elemental workbench, and you keep the book, so don't worry about that. And I'll put Warcraft back in. So this elemental workbench, put it down. It's got I quite like the model of it myself. So you right click on it, and you see your regular crafting GUI, except there's an extra slot here for putting a book of knowledge into. And essentially the purpose of having the book of knowledge there is that it allows you to do recipes that require research. So that's that. And you can do regular crafting recipes in here, as you would. So that's all fine. So it works as a regular crafting bench. However, let me just grab, like, I don't know, some simple application rods. If I put that in that slot and I exit out, it doesn't drop its inventory on the floor. It actually keeps it inside. So that's a big difference. So that is one of the nice things about this table. You can pick it up. It'll drop its inventory when you pick it up, but yeah, that's what happens. So that's the elemental workbench. Another block you want to make is this elemental inscriber, which requires an inscription tile and a crafting table. The inscription tile is made using sandstone, which is all dictionaried, and stone, which is also all dictionaried in this case, to make inscription tiles, which you're going to need a lot of, by the way. You're going to need a lot of these, because they're used to do research. So you put down your elemental inscriber. And the other thing you're going to want is your researching table, which requires a simple crystal, a crafting table. So a simple crystal, I will show you. If we TP down to this box, I found one down here. Oh yeah, and I grabbed myself some torches or something. Oops. Where are torches at? I've completely forgotten where torches are in this game. Yeah. Alright. See, you get these simple crystal deposits, and these will spawn in the world. There's actually a config option, so you can turn them off if you want, but if you mine these, I'll just turn it to peaceful. Yeah. And if I grab a pickaxe, you can I think you can do it with an iron one, but I can't actually remember. Go in soil mode, I can mine this, and it will drop a simple crystal. There you go, that's that. Now I only found one, which I'm surprised by, but usually more than one in these deposits. Oh well. There's usually more than one, but it seems not today. There's another one here. So behind this as well, even more. So you can get quite a bit. These veins are reasonably large. So I got 7 already, so that's not bad. You're going to want a lot of those, by the way. They're very important to you as a player. So if I can find my stuff, which is over there. So once you've got those crystals, you want to make your researching table. So step 1, open the researching table, and we'll be presented with this GUI here. And what we'll do is I'll put a book of knowledge in that slot there, and it will put up these buttons and these arrows to go through them. And these are the researches that you can currently do, basically. And when I highlight over them, it puts up a word, and essentially to do the research, all you have to do is type in that word into these slots here. How do you do that, you may ask? Well, that's what these inscription tiles are for. So you have lots of different elements here to work with. Mind you, when you're doing these elements, once you've picked one, you can't pick the other ones until you finish the rest of the research. So be aware of that this choice here at the beginning is final until you've finished everything in the mod, and then you'll be able to unlock the other elements. So we're going to do water. It's quite simple. So what you do is you come over to your inscriber, put your inscription tiles into the slot here, and it'll pop up all these different variations of it. And these are actually letters from the Shadow Minion language in TSON. So they each correspond to an English letter. And fun little note, if you do F3H to show tooltips, I'll turn them on, I'll show head on, you can actually see that it says Lordcraft : tile_A, tile_B, tile_C. So you can use that to figure out which is the one you're looking for. So we're trying to spell aqua, which is Latin for water, if you don't know. So we want A, we want a Q, so we find a Q somewhere around here. That's Q, really hiding. I don't know where all these things are placed. It's in alphabetical order, but I'm not entirely sure where they correspond to. So we've got an A, we've got a Q, a U, and an A. So if I put these into here, like so, you can actually put them anywhere so long as they're in the right order. And you can spell the word aqua. So you click on the button, and if it's correct, it will say you've achieved your research. It will unlock it in your achievements tree. There, water research, picking a side. These will now be locked off until you complete this one here, which is Delos, which I'll talk about later. So as you can see, they've all disappeared now. So another thing we're going to want to do, okay, well, let me explain what the water research did. So now we've done our water research, it will allow us to make this damp crystal, which do by putting 4 simple crystals in a water bucket, and it makes 4 of them. You can see here it says that it requires that research. So if I go here, 4 of these, grab myself a bucket of water, switch back into survival mode. The reason I'm switching into survival mode is if you're in creative mode, you don't actually have to do any of the research. All the recipes are available to you. So, yeah. So, you can see I can make damp crystals like so. I'm just going to grab one of these. 4 damp crystals. Very nice. And these will be used in a variety of recipes later on. Just to prove that you require the research for it to work, let's make a dense crystal, which is the earth one. It requires coal. So if I grab myself some coal, if I switch back into survival mode, oops, like so, piece of coal, 4 of these, you can see I can't do it. Though of course if I switch into creative mode and then take the book out, maybe I got rid of that. Am I doing this wrong? I don't think I am. Whatever, that's weird. Basically it's not going to work because I haven't done the research for it. So that's that. So now what we want to do is look at what we could do with the stamp crystals. So you can make tools with these things. However, I haven't actually set that up properly, but these are supposed to require tool research, which you do these tools here. So type in the word control. C, that's an N, that's an O. What's the T? R. An L? Yep. Control. There we are, water tools. And that, when the thing's fully released, will allow you to make these crystal tools of the different elements, and they'll have different enchantments on them. So the water ones have mending on them by default. So if I make one of these, actually I haven't bothered to make one of these, but basically all these tools have different enchantments on when you make them. So water has mending, earth has mending as well. Okay, so these two both have mending, fire has mending. I feel like I've done something wrong here. They're supposed to do something different. Whatever. They do have different statistics as well. So, or maybe they all have mending on them. That might be it. Oh, these ones don't. Okay, I'm very confused. Yeah. Okay. Okay, yeah, they're all supposed to have mending on them. Sorry, but they have different statistics. These pickaxes for some reason don't. I don't know why that is. All the other tools do. That's weird. I'll have to look into that. But anyway, they're all supposed to have mending on them, so these tools will regenerate with your XP as per, and they have different stats. Some dig faster than others, etc. That sort of thing. As you can see from the swords, they have a variety of different sort of statistics that are going on with them. Yeah, just that. So probably the next thing we want to look at, we've done the tools, is probably looking into the robes. Actually, let's not look into the robes yet. Let's look into. Okay, let's look into advanced research. So once I complete staff here, we will need to do something else. So staff. So put that in there. I may have done this wrong actually, but staff. So I've done staff construction, and now it requires me to type in the word robe. Now I'm actually going to do this wrong, just so you can see what happens when you do it wrong. Because currently you're just taking for granted that it works. I can need to doubt myself whether it actually works or not. If I do that, so I'm only spelling Rob, then I try and spell robe. If I click on that, it just eats the items and says that's not right. So that's a thing. But if I do it correctly, it will complete research, magic weave, which will allow me to make this infused cloth, which you can use to make these robes, which have different enchantments on them. This is where I got the different enchantments from. That's the thing I was thinking of. These ones, they don't have names yet, probably. This is very much an alpha. This is the first alpha that I've actually bothered to show off. So there's a lot of things that are unfinished. These require robe research, and they also give you a mana discount when using these staffs here, which I'll talk about. I'll get around to it. So we want to research metal as well. Where's M? Somewhere around here. There it is. Granted, this probably isn't the most interesting spotlight so far, well, preview, sorry, so far, but we haven't really explored much other than this research and mechanics. Metal, there we are. Never noticed that there's no more research available to us. Why is that? Because clearly, if we look here, there is a lot more research. There's this, magical ore processing, runic satchels, magical gems, runes. By the way, rune satchels and runes haven't been done yet. And improved staff cores and claws. Why is it that we can't see those? Well, that's because we need to upgrade this researching table, elemental inscriber, and elemental workbench. And you do that by combining it with this infused metal. You might be thinking, how do I get this infused metal? Well, there's a recipe for it. Using the Arcane Forge. Requires ingots research, which is why I researched that. And it requires iron, gold, and infused metal, like so, inside of your Arcane Forge. So, the Arcane Forge is a multi-block. It requires a block of simple crystal, like so. It requires 4 iron blocks. Where's iron at? There it is. And a bucket of lava. So, why did I do that? So you build it like so. You don't need the one in the middle. And you put the lava bucket there. And then you simply right-click on this block of simple crystal. And it forms the Arcane Forge. Fairly simple. There's this GUI here, as such. Furnace Arcane Forge. There's 2 sections to it, which I'll talk about in a moment. So, if I grab myself some stone, actually, just because, and I'm also going to grab myself a bunch of gold and a bunch of iron, some diamonds, and that's probably all I need for there. So, this furnace section at the bottom, pretty simple. It's a really slow furnace, but it has infinite fuel. You don't need to power it with anything. So it doesn't require power, but it's really, really slow. The next thing to draw your attention to is this book slot. Put your book in there. That's how you know. That's how it knows that it can do this. It requires the research and stuff, basically. So take that back out. And this slot here, because as we can see from this recipe here, you fill in these 2 slots here with iron and gold. You can put them in any order you want. But it doesn't matter. But this slot here is the important one. So if I put the book in, it's not going to do anything. And the reason is because it needs something to go here. And this is the crystal pool, a very important item in TSON Craft. So you craft it, I don't have a recipe yet, but you craft a non-attuned one to start off with, and you will then upgrade it into one of these elementally attuned ones by combining it with some crystals, probably. I haven't decided yet. We'll get around to that eventually. But what you want to do is craft a crystal pool of whichever element you're using. I'm using water, so I'm going to have to make a water one. And you craft a mana battery. Now this is a very important mechanic. So this is, put one of these down, and you equip it with a mana siphon of whatever element you're using. Like so. It will glow that color. And what you do with this mana battery is you take your damn crystals, or whatever crystals you've got, and you throw crystal near it, and it will absorb the crystal and make power out of it. So I can now take this crystal pool and link it with that battery, and it will link across dimensions from any distance, whatever. So what you want to do probably is bury your mana battery underground so that no one tampers with it, because this is very important to a lord, as it were, as it is what powers all of your magic. So your crystal pool is now linked to that, and if I right click with it, it tells me there's 4,000 energy. So you get 1,000 energy per crystal you drop in. And this is the same for each element. Let's see, a bit more. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I've got 16,000. Later on, you'll be able to upgrade the size of it, applying some upgrades to it. But at the moment, it's a fixed size, and that's how it is. So now that we've got that done, we go to our Arcane Forge and place the crystal pool into here, which will allow it to work like that. Now, note that you can make a second crystal pool and also link it to that battery, and this will work independent of this one. So if I were to, say, run one of these through here, like so, it will make an infused metal. And if I right click with this crystal pool, because it's checking how much power is in here, it's the same amount as in here. So when this used up 4,000 energy to produce this infused metal, that's what it did. So another thing to note is that different elements require different amounts of energy. So for example, if I were to, because I'm cheating, technically speaking, I can take a mana battery and I will power it using a light mana siphon. If I were to link it with a light crystal pool, put this in here, while also taking another one, I could, theoretically, 16 of these bright crystals, put them into this pool here, and I should see I've got, oh, need to link that, 16,000 energy, same with this, and if I put one of these and one of these in, it'll produce infused metal, but it used far less energy, and the reason why is because different crystals are different costs. The light one requires glowstone, the dark one requires obsidian, so these two are the most expensive realistically. This one time-wise, and this one just glowstone's expensive to some degree. Floating crystals, which is air, requires quartz. Searing crystals, which is fire, requires lava. And obviously the earth requires coal. Water only requires a water bucket. This is basically free stuff. This one requires 4,000 energy. Earth requires, I think, 2,000, that's 2 crystals. Fire, I think, requires 1. And air requires 1.5, I think. Approximately. And then light and dark both only cost half a crystal each, basically, for processing in this thing. So the Arcane Forge actually has a bunch of recipes here. So you have converting diamonds into emeralds, for example. Ores you can process into shards. So you take 2 ores and process it into a shard, and the shard will turn into 3 ingots each, which is pretty nice. So it's all tripling there, which is very useful, mind you. And that works for all the ores, and it will actually detect which ores are in the mod pack. It hasn't detected my copper ones, my ones from TSON Craft correctly, but probably because I wrote the wrong things. Again, it's an alpha, so but it will actually detect which ones are available, essentially. So that's one of the other things it does. So I'm going to break this. So when you break one of these, you get your mana battery back and you get your siphon back. But you will lose all the energy that was in the battery. So now we've got this infused metal, we can get rid of these. Let's grab a pickaxe out. That's a terrible pickaxe. Take all this stuff out. Remove these, because we're going to upgrade them into the T2 versions. An advanced elemental workbench, an advanced elemental inscriber, and an advanced researching table. These all look completely different. Well, I say completely different. They're all blue, basically. Blue versions are exactly the same thing. So, the main difference is in the workbench here. As you can see, it now has these extra storage slots here, which is why it's more expensive than the other ones. But it works in the same way, so you can do all the same recipes with it and all that stuff. Furnaces, like so. And if you try and shift click into it, it will try and fill any slots it can. So if you shift click from your inventory, it will go into there. Basically, but it won't fill up slots that are currently empty. It will only fill up if it's going anywhere. Otherwise, it will just sit into this area here. If I take this stuff out quickly, and I shift click it in, it will go into this portion. But if I put one there, it will go into there. And if I make something, it will pull it into here and then into my inventory if I click again. So that's something to note with this device. And to be honest, it's designed to feel sort of natural in the way it shift clicks. So everything will go into this area first, but it will go into here if it can, sort of thing. But it won't mess up your recipe by saying, ooh, I've run out of space, so I'm just going to fill this middle spot in. Basically, that's the advantage. And of course, it keeps its inventory, as you'd expect. So that's that. We then have the advanced elemental inscriber, which doesn't have any GUI, but it could do, and it may do in the future. I don't know whether I'm going to bother with that, because that's data that's pointlessly being wasted to some degree. This one warrants it because it's got extra slots in it. So the difference between this one is, obviously this is the same. You can use the same inscription tiles. However, you can also use these advanced inscription tiles. Now these ones are a bit more difficult to work with because you can't just have a look and see which letter it is. You either have to know what the symbols are or understand, or just read the number and say, oh yes, this goes to Z because it's 26. That sort of thing. So, but it lets you make these ones, which are the more advanced inscription tiles. And if I go into here now, and I put the book in, you'll see that there are more researches now that we're using the advanced table. So this is kind of a sort of a step up in where you need to be. So you need to make an Arcane Forge in order to continue your research. If you don't make an Arcane Forge, you don't have your mana set up, you will not be able to do this. Actually, I probably should skate over this, but you may have noticed that that we have different types of crystal pools, and it says stores light mana, stores water mana, etc. Now the reason is because you actually have different mana systems, so each element is unique to itself. So water mana is different to light mana, and they power things differently, and are completely separate systems. So you can't power a water staff off a light crystal. It has to be powered by a water crystal, for example. So that's something that needs to be noted. And I nearly forgot to mention it. So be aware of that. So let us continue with this. So I want to make some crystals. So if I go into here, actually, I'll show you. You can make these infused gems using the gems research. So if I go here, and grab myself some arrows, we will see that, in fact, if I actually link one that's working, I've got mana in here, I do. As indeed, I need my book as well. That's another thing. You can actually make a second book and link it to yourself as well. That works too. So you can have one in each of these devices. If you want to make more, it's doable. Put my book in there. Nothing's happening. Oh no. Nothing's happening because I haven't researched gems yet. So the Arcane Forge does respect the research system, which is nice. So I need to research gems. Of course, I need to type in the word crystal. So I need to see. Sometimes I have to go back to this thing. Where we are. Oh, I feel like I should know which these are by now, but I don't. S is going to look like 3 that way. T looks like that's 3 and then 1. 3 and then 1. Then L looks like L. L is just 1 and then 5. 1 and then 5. Good. So type in the word crystal, I think. Magical gems, there we are. Done. It's a bit more tricky when you get to these because it doesn't just say the letter, and I can never remember the symbols, even though I've invented them. It's like, you know, I invented this notation for writing in this language. I still can't remember what they are, so that's that. So now we're done with gems research, we can combine an emerald and a diamond together to make an infused gem. So that's another thing that exists. So that's how the advanced research works out. So that's that, basically. The advanced research is now done. So another thing you can do, if I break this Arcane Forge here, I can actually upgrade this Arcane Forge, though I don't have a recipe for it yet, into an advanced Arcane Forge, just like these, as an advanced version. Pop your mana crystal in there, pop your Book of Knowledge in. And this version is a little bit quicker than the previous incarnation of the same thing. As you can see there, it's significantly faster. Now I'll just chuckle these on the floor to cast. So as you can see, it's significantly faster than it was last time. So it's 17, it gets out of that. This is also quite a bit faster than before, about double the speed as before, but it's still pretty slow, but it is faster nonetheless. So if you are using this furnace slot, I know it's kind of pointless, but if you are, Good for you. It's a bit quicker now. So, now that we've done that, I will talk about staffs, which will tie in nicely with the robes that I will cover. So, staffs, there's one for each of the 4 primal elements, and there is to be one for light and dark. However, this is going to be slightly different because of the law of TSON. They have to be different. So I'm currently working on a way to implement them differently to the way I'm implementing these. So don't worry about it. There is a reason for everything that I do here. So I'm going to quickly set up a couple of mana batteries, 4 of them. 4 mana batteries. We're going to grab 4 siphons. Siphons up here. And we're going to grab a stack of each crystal. I just sort of leave them somewhere near these batteries. I'm going to grab 4 of these. Alright, so we now have power, basically, for quite a while. And I can show you how these staffs work. So, first of all, the water staff. Fires blocks of ice. Now they have gravity, but they do hurt mobs when you hit them with them. So, that's a thing. Meant more for close range, I think. It uses up a little bit of power, but so you can't see because of, oops. You can see I've got through quite a few crystals already, so I've got through a fair bunch. I think it uses 500 energy, each of these do, per use. Which will change depending on how they're upgraded, basically. So if I shift right click with this tool, it calls it terrain. This is one of the few styles that actually has a secondary effect at the moment. The other ones I'm still trying to work out what the secondary effect would be. But this one calls it terrain. And I can stop it from raining by doing it again. Like so. Then we have the Staff of Earth. So Staff of Earth does similar to what the Earth Rune did in TSON Craft. Oh, no, it doesn't apparently. Why is that the case? Oh yeah, because I haven't researched. Right, yeah. So I actually need to create them over here. So these actually require you to have the research in order to use them. So that's why I couldn't use it just then. If I use it now, you see it breaks blocks, and it actually drops the items directly on your head. So if I break one of these, it drops it right next to the player for easy pickup. So that's nice. An advantage to the TSON Craft version. And I don't think this one has a secondary effect. No, it doesn't. So that's that. So we have the Fire Staff. This one fires a projectile. That doesn't seem to do very much at first glance, but it actually sets mobs on fire when you hit it with it. This is more for fighting with. This stuff is. Unfortunately, the gravity does make it a bit annoying in its current state. It's not the easiest to deal with, but that's that. Doesn't have a secondary effect. The Air Staff has the power to lift mobs into the air, I believe. Yep. So, pretty crazy. Not hugely useful, but it exists in its own way. And it doesn't have a secondary effect as far as I'm aware. Not yet. I'm thinking its secondary effect is probably going to be to push mobs back, or fire a projectile that forces them to slam into the ground. So if they're up in the air, you can pull them down. So increased force. So that's the tier 1 staffs. So they have a dual upgrade system, much like the machines in TSON Craft do, where you can upgrade the rod and you can upgrade the claw. And the claw increases the power of the spells, and the rod decreases the cost. So only at the highest tier staffs, I'll start using them. So these actually, when with a fully upgraded rod and fully upgraded claw, actually cost the same as not having an upgraded tool. However, it fires a much better projectile. So this doesn't have gravity on it, and it fires a lot faster. Again, it can control the rain, as per. And then we have the earth, which fires rocks, again, dropping them on your head. Now, not only does this not have gravity, the projectile moves faster, but it also has a higher mining level, so it can mine better stuff, basically. And the fire one, similar again, just faster and does more damage and has less gravity. It still has some, because the fire stuff is genuinely pretty ridiculous, actually, as a weapon. So, and then we have the air staff, which no gravity, faster projectile, and it lifts them more than the previous version did. I'm out of air mana already, so that sucks. Let's go fill that back up again. I'm out of quite a lot of the mana actually over here. Yeah, so realistically that idea of storing it like that is not a good idea, but because I haven't got the ability to make them store more, that's kind of the only way I can do it for this spotlight. Oops, up we go. So yeah, it's quite an easy way of killing mobs. It actually works on players as well, as far as I'm aware. So you can fling players up into the air like this too. So that's that stuff. Let's finish up this one as well. Yeah. So these are pretty interesting things. They're pretty effective, what they do. Okay. So something we want to look at now is discounts. So this uses 500 energy per shot. That's pretty reasonable. So what we want to do is have a look at this mage armor. Now, the textures are based off the ones from TSON Craft, mostly. So that's why they look similar to the lords in TSON Craft, if you remember correctly. So the way this works is each piece of armor you wear gives you a 10% mana discount. So this staff uses 500 energy per shot. So if I pop a crystal down, a couple of them, we shall see we've got 8,000 energy. If I fire one without armor on, and then check again, we've got 7,500. If I quick piece of armor, fire again, you see that we have a little bit left over. Quick a second piece of armor, fire again, even more, and again. There we are. As you can see, having the full set on actually reduces the cost quite significantly to only 300, and that means that you're getting 3 shots out instead of 2 per crystal, which may not seem like a lot, but in reality, it's quite a big deal. Because these crystals, like, they're not the most common thing to find in the world, and you're using the actual crystal up as well as whatever element you're pairing it with. So it's not a cheap option, but it is currently the only way to power these things. So that's that. So that is the things, and these actually have different textures. So quick the fire one just to show you. They're pretty much the same, except that the trim on them is a different color for each element. So they will have this slightly bluish hue to the actual fabric itself, and that's because you make it using this infused cloth here, which is blue. So that's why. And they actually have enchantments on them. So the fire one has fire protection. The water one has protection 2, and the helmet has acrophyntia respiration. So different parts of it are different enchantments. Depth strider, you know, sort of thing. Earth one just has blast protection, I think, the whole way through. Fire one has fire protection the whole way through. Air one has projectile protection, but on the boots it also has feather falling 4. The light one has protection 3 all the way across, and the dark one also has protection 3 all the way across. So that's the full set, basically. That's what they do, and they give you the same discount for each element. That also only applies to staves, and it will apply to runes when they're out, though they won't be out in the first version I release, which will be in the coming weeks, I imagine, because I'm getting fairly close to a release. Just a few bugs I've got to fix here and there, add a way to craft the staves, and to be honest, I'd say that's about it for the first version of Lordcraft. You know, that's where we're at. A very strong position, I would say, moving forward. So yeah, pretty exciting stuff in my opinion. I'm very interested to see where I go with this from here on, because I must say, working with Lordcraft is quite different to working with TSON Craft on the back end, because my sort of way I've structured the entire program is a lot nicer than it was before, and certainly it's going to be much easier to work with over the future times than TSON Craft is. Having said that, I'm not abandoning TSON Craft at all. TSON Craft will continue to be updated, and all of that, basically. And the other thing is that I am working on a 1.11.2 update for TSON Craft. However, I've been very busy recently. Combination of work and also this project here. So that's why not a lot has happened over the recent days since I released the 4.0.1 version of TSON Craft. So yeah. So now I probably want to talk about why I made Lordcraft, or why I'm doing this entire process. The reason I made Lordcraft is because I felt that TSON Craft's Magic Stage, I felt that it seemed a bit shallow. There wasn't a lot of depth to things. There wasn't a lot of reason to do stuff. You sort of made it and it was like, okay, that's a cool tool of sorts. There was never a purpose to it. And all it was like a crafting recipe to get it. You know, a little bit of in-world crafting in the rooms, whatever. That was the thing. And it wasn't hugely engaging. However, it seemed to be a major selling point of the mod, and I didn't really see why, to some extent. So that's why I'm making this. This is essentially an expanded version of the same thing. And by expanded, I mean far expanded to its own creation. And all of this stuff, there weren't even staves in TSON Craft. There wasn't a split mana system. There wasn't research. These are things that weren't in TSON Craft, but actually do exist within the lore of TSON. And it's about time that I was able to spread that to some degree. So for anyone who's interested in the placement of Lordcraft at the times of TSON, Lordcraft is probably based before when TSON Craft would have taken place, if you were to consider the sort of level of technology within TSON Craft. The time at which that occurred would have been after Lordcraft was around, to some degree. So at the time of TSON Craft, there weren't any staffs, because staffs had been replaced by runes. But the concept of Lordcraft is that you are a lord, and you are developing your skills within your elements. You have arrived at the Lord Realms before the times when they were split up into different dimensions, such that each element had its own dimension. This is in the time when all of them were in one large colony, split up into different sort of sections of elemental groups. And you have arrived on this island, on this mainland area, and it is your choice whom you side with. And that's what your research does. You research into whichever element you pick, but you can't pick another one once you do until you become the Thalos. The Thalos is a being that exists within TSON who supposedly has control of the element of lightning, which according to TSON is a combination of all 6 of the elements. As a result, the Thalos is able to control 6 of the elements, and will only ever learn lightning once he has learned all of the other 6, because there is no other Thalos at one time, so he cannot learn lightning from anyone. So the only way he can learn lightning is to learn all of the elements that make lightning up, basically. So that is the point, the Thalos, and that is why that is the end research that allows you to then access the other trees without restriction. So the concept of this is that you are a lord, secretly the Thalos, that you don't know it realistically until you've done the research to find out that you are the Thalos and you are capable of learning the other elements. So that is pretty much it. Hope you guys have enjoyed this preview of Lordcraft. I hope you guys are also interested to where it is going and are excited for the release, which I don't know when it's going to be, but it's going to be fairly soon because I haven't got much left to do. I have been working very hard on this, and well, I'm happy to finally present something to you guys, because it's been in the dark for quite a while. Mind you, I have had a few earlier versions of the alpha on my survival series, though you guys haven't seen that yet because I'm on a massive backlog at the moment because I haven't had time to upload it. So you may be seeing that, but you'll probably see this first, I'd imagine, because this is going to come out before those episodes are. So it's going to be kind of interesting when those come around and you're like, huh, the only thing in here is that crafting table. So, yeah. Hope you guys have enjoyed this preview, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.